Hey everybody, this is QueenJames. Welcome to episode 97 of the linear reread. Just wanted to let you know I ended up having to split this episode up into two parts. So go ahead and look out for part 1 and part 2, just because of the length of the episode. Part 1 will contain the first 2 chapters, a Tyrion and a Dany chapter, and then part 2 will have a Dany chapter and a TWOW preview chapter of Arianne's. And we also go into a quite lengthy show discussion at the end. So go ahead and look out for parts 1 and part 2 and enjoy.
Nova Gaiden! Axia osentas, menti osentas, kiloni filos luevale dolvio osenetas, ininio trigatas, urnei lueidolhe prijatas! Dracarys.
Hello everybody and welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave, a great linear A Song of Ice and Fire reread. We are on episode 97. This episode could potentially spoil any events in George R.R. Martin's published series, including TWOW preview chapters. It will not, however, contain show spoilers unless clearly marked before. In this last episode, we ended with Jon learning that the Karstarks are about to betray Stannis in Jon 9. And in this episode, we will cover Tyrion 10, Dany 8, Dany 9 from Dance, and we will also go over an Arianne chapter from TWOW. These events cover July 1st through July 3rd of 300 AL. And today I am joined by Sarah.
Hi, it's Sarah, Dr. Blood on the forums.
Michael.
Hey, Khal Wadege on the forums.
Kevin.
Hey, this is Kevin, also known as Gaiden on the forums.
Noah.
Hey, Pops88 on the forums.
Marie.
Hey everyone, it's Nymeria on the forums.
Matt.
Varley on the forums.
And the lovely Bina.
Yo, Bina 007 on the forums.
And we may be joined by Hannah sometime later. She just has not joined the party yet. Alright, so after Dany 8, we jump over a Theon chapter to Dany 9. This takes place on July 3rd, which is also the day of Cersei's trial. And with the summary, we have Kevin.
No shit, that's the same day? I don't think I realized that.
That's what Bina wrote on the thing, so that's what I'm going with.
Ha!
So right, that's happening to Cersei.
Shame.
Shame. So yeah, this is it. It's the day after Dany's wedding. As part of the celebrations, the fighting pits are scheduled to be reopened. Daenerys is not happy about this. She was the one that closed the pits, wanting to put an end to what she saw as a pointless slaughter of people, many of them being slaves. On the way to the pits, she witnesses a slave collapsing from exhaustion. Dany stops her royal procession to get aid for the slave. Fearing an ambush, Sir Barristan insists they press on. His czar points out that the slave is being cared for and Dany need not worry. They continue on to the fighting pits, but Dany's worries are not alleviated. At the fighting pits, Dany is celebrated by the crowd, but what is supposed to feel like adoration feels like mockery to Daenerys. A series of battles begin, one including a mock Khalasar, much to Jaqui and Aerys' dismay. We find out that the dead animals used in the fighting will be used to feed the poor. There's a folly that includes Tyrion Lannister, which Daenerys and Sir Barristan do not recognize, or rather, Sir Barristan does not recognize, and Daenerys doesn't because she's never met him. Once they do arrive at the fighting pits, Hizdar presses on a bowl of honeyed locusts to Daenerys, insisting that she tries them because they taste so good. But strong Belwas bogards the bowl for himself, eats them all, gets sick, and decides he needs some milk. Daenerys slowly gets pissed as things goes on, and she decides to leave. Just as she takes off her floppy ears, which is her tokar, Drogon appears. Ever the largest of her 3 dragons, Drogon has grown larger in the wild. He lands after killing the boar that killed the famed pit fighter Barcena Blackhair. Daenerys, who was originally against the fighting pits, ends up putting on the best show that the fighting pits has ever seen in the history of the fighting pits. As she leaps into the pit to take on the dragon, she grabs a whip, beats down the dragon when it tries to fly away and attack her, and puts Drogon into submission. She leaps onto his back, removes a spear that was thrown into him by a pit tendant who I guess wanted to become a dragon slayer. As she wraps her legs around Drogon's neck, she whips his back, insisting that he rise up higher, take her, fly. And now, for the first time in over 100 years, we have a Targaryen dragon rider.
Who's having an orgasm.
On her child's back, yes.
Fully, yeah.
Isn't that how it happens?
Is it? I don't think it works that way.
That's not how I do it.
No, you and I. Not fair.
So, have you guys ever witnessed any blood sport?
What?
Not
only the
fighting or like
Oh,
MMA.
yeah. We go dog fighting in Tijuana every weekend.
So no,
is that a blood sport is something that people die during?
No, like bullfighting, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. No.
I feel like, oh, now that we've clarified, no.
Yeah, exactly.
My brother does pro-am MMA, and we got ringside seats to some licensed bout one time, and one bout the guy put the other dude in a Peruvian necktie and snapped his ankle right in front of us, and there was blood sprayed all over the mat. If that counts.
That's pretty gross. I saw an amateur MMA thing
awesome.
too.
It was really awesome.
The crowd was full of douchebags when I went. But at the bullfight, they have bands playing, and I've been to one in Spain and one in Mexico, and the atmosphere is just crazy. Everyone's drinking and eating, and that's just how I imagine this atmosphere is the same way. Instead of honey locusts, there's chapalinas, which are pan-fried grasshoppers and stuff like that. Anyway, so
Yeah, we talk every once in a while about George's horror writing, and I think that it was really on display in this chapter too, just with the nauseous energy that kind of literally Belle was vomiting, and then the smells and the sounds and the gore and the violence. I don't know. It was very striking to me from that perspective in a way that I don't think it was on my first reading, because I was so excited about the dragon. You know what I mean? But
he has the ability to turn to create an environment that's kind of frenzy and kinetic, and then make it turn into this horror show, right? Just like you were saying, all of a sudden one mistake and there's screams and there's blood and people puking. Yeah, I get you.
So I didn't get to this chapter because I've been working a million hours all ever. But is this the one that starts with their riding to the pit in a litter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that timbre in that was, I literally thought something was going to happen right then. When I first read it, I was tense.
Yeah.
It was the build up and
from the beginning of this, and then the whole locust thing. I'm like, don't eliminate them.
Right.
Don't even be there. Get out.
Well, we've seen similar riots happen in King's Landing, haven't we? In a very similar situation.
Yeah.
There was a previous wedding that did not end well. I know it's not her actual wedding, but after the Red Wedding, anytime you just feel
it does feel. Yeah, it does feel very Red Wedding. That's a great comparison.
I think about the locusts. I was thinking reading this chapter that he does tell her to try them, but he doesn't insist, or at least we don't see it. I would expect if he really wanted her to actually eat them, he would reprimand Belwas for taking them all, or just do something more, not completely ignore the thing after he told her once to eat them.
Doesn't Barristan get him to admit that he was behind that? Because I agree with. I think that he admits to it. Because I always thought it was weird that he didn't just kind of scuttle aside and peace out, because if he knew that they were poisoned, he knew that Belwas was going to show it, and he'd have to answer for that, and
I guess
I don't think he ever admits to it.
No,
I think
he doesn't.
He accuses him. He and Hizdahr starts getting more and more nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all agreed that the Harpy is likely the Green Grace, right?
Yeah. I mean,
On
she's
my first pass through, yeah.
So, if that's the case, do you think Hizdar's involved but is ignorant of this plot? But because he can keep the peace for so long, he's got to have some involvement, right?
Yeah, or I guess it could be something that he found out after, once he noticed how, sick Belwas got. If he is, part of it, then he could have gone to the Green Grace and been like, what the fuck, man, you poisoned those locusts.
I was about to eat those.
That would be stupid, though, because why would he not eat them? I mean, if he doesn't know, it's taking the risk of basically killing everyone in this party.
Well,
I think he does know, because he's the Green Grace's cousin or something, right? Like, isn't she the one who initially brings him forward as the best candidate?
But aren't all the Graces related? Or...
Oh, I don't know.
Well, it's probably
I don't
like
think
Westeros.
so. No,
everyone's someone's cousin.
Right.
I mean, I feel like he's in on it, and he's in a position to benefit from it, but I feel like he is maintaining a kind of like plausible deniability, right? Where like they're not directly involving him in anything, they're just maneuvering him into position with their machinations.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's such a puppet. He doesn't have an independent thought in his body.
No.
Well,
I was just gonna. He puts like a bunch of his cousins in charge of the Brazen Beast and a few other things, and kind of tries to take a bit of power. But even that, who's to say he's not the Aegon Frey of this family?
When you look at the way Hizdar acts in the coming chapters, when Daenerys is gone, he comes across as completely like just a pushover. He has no idea what to do, which makes me doubt if he has any, overall ambitions, or whether he's just like a patsy.
No, all he wants to do is make money and like fuck girls and guys.
Hizdar's bisexual.
I mean, I feel like there's a parallel here in Westeros that I can't put my finger on, but just like somebody who I think he's almost like what Tywin wanted Cersei to be, where he would like maneuver her into position as queen and then she would like do whatever he said. Or maybe like Tommen is a better comparison, where like everybody's scheming got him where he is, but he's just concerned about like whether or not he's going to have to eat vegetables.
Sure, pounds.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What
I would
Mace
say,
sees Marjorie
Mace.
Yeah.
Mace. Olenna uses him as a bit of a puppet. I mean, if we all believe that Mace is a bit of a dick.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't see that until you guys mentioned it, but now that you're talking about it, that does make sense, the comparisons between the two. And so, as far as the poisoned locusts go, do we think that those were actually meant to like poison and kill Daenerys? Because I mean, Belwas eats the entire bowl and he just becomes sick. So I'm just thinking, is it kind of like when Tyrion gave Cersei shits for the day? Like, was it something like that? Like it was just meant to make Daenerys sick and kind of like bedridden for a couple weeks or something, and
or maybe it's just like a regular like bowl of candy. If you eat one, you're going to be fine. If you eat the entire fucking bowl, you're going to feel miserable.
That's true. But Barristan does say that
he's sick for a couple days after.
Oh yeah, he loses a ton of weight, and he's a mess.
Yeah.
And Barristan says the only reason why he survived is because he's so big.
Yeah, his bulk saved him. But I do agree with you, QueenJames, that whoever poisoned the locusts maybe can't decide whether they're done with Daenerys or not. If she dies, that helps. But if she survives and is really sick and wants to blame something, that also helps this poisoner. So
well, there's also the flip side of it, where if you think how the Sons of the Harpy and the Green Graces operated till now, which is with steel, maybe it's the shave pate trying to take out Hizdar.
Ooh.
Okay,
so Hizdar,
that's interesting.
That he loves the locust because he mentioned it before.
Exactly. He does mention it a lot. Maybe that's just because he's fond of him.
There's a line in one of the later chapters where Hizdar says he doesn't like spices. Hot spices do not agree with him.
Right.
So that does make me think it wasn't
He's such a
targeted to
wank. I hate him so much.
But he also mentions that they taste good. Excuse me.
Right? Are these not?
So he's
Yeah. No, he does say they taste good, but he's not going to eat them.
Right, the mixture of sweet and spicy or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Or is this just like are these Jane Westerling's hips right now?
This is like Harrison thinks about this later, so it's definitely, we're meant to think about these lines.
It's Chekhov's Honey Locust.
I believe this is poison that is meant to look like poison because the person who's poisoned it is trying to frame somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, yeah.
Have we discussed who poisoned the locusts, sorry? Or has that been previously talked about?
No, I think we still need to talk about that.
Oh. Well, I'll let everyone else go first. Who has any candidates they'd like to put forward?
I have no idea.
Isn't it the Sons of the Harpy that made the confectioner poison it?
Supposedly, but I am of the opinion that it was Skahaz Mokandak, the shave pate.
Trying to
kill who?
No, trying to make
frame Hizdar. Because if you look what happens afterwards, Skahaz Mokandak benefits enormously because he convinces Barristan to carry out this coup. And if you look at the current, Daenerys' marriage to Hizdar, Skahaz just got sidelined. He's no longer the commander of the Brazen Beasts.
Yep.
But he is all in name, right? He says so to Barristan, like, they're all mine, despite who leads them.
Yeah, so he wants to get back on top.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense because then if he puts little enough that it wouldn't have killed her, which I think we've already suggested because Belwas eats the whole thing, and like yes, he's huge, but how likely is Dany to like pound a bowl of locusts? You know what I mean? Like,
and then he gets back in Dany's good graces. Like it's
Well, no matter who eats them, it's going to look like the Sons of the Harpy.
Right.
But yeah, I've always been against the idea that the Sons of the Harpy did this because, like, I think the Sons of the Harpy are rational to an extent in that, like, they have got what they wanted. The dragon has been chained. Their patsy, Hizdar, is married, and they've got this compromise. So they really don't want to sabotage this peace that they've just achieved, which could destroy all of Marine.
But
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
But they've never done anything like this before as well. They always come with knives in the night after Unsullied or Brazen Beasts.
Yeah, but I think the tension within Marine's getting higher that they'd be willing to risk more because there's armies at their doorstep. There's
the armies are their friends allegedly.
Right. Well, they just broke it a peace, so like that's everyone's happy. Like everyone gets something they want.
Yeah, doesn't making Dany sick suggest that she would crack down on them? I mean, like, wouldn't she assume that it was? Assuming she survives,
which is what Skahaz Mokandak would want.
So you think that by provoking her like that, she would go ahead and like take the children from all the major families like he's been advocating for and like make a harder line against like his own family's enemies?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I like it. I'm on board.
I agree.
Oh, well, that's good.
Well done, Michael.
That wasn't hard at all. All right.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be an intense
everybody.
debate, but no, it's good.
Oh, yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Well, it's not my idea.
Get shut down by Matt, so.
Hey.
Can we talk, as long as we're talking about motivations, can we talk a little bit about Hizdar's reaction to Drogon?
Yeah.
Yelling, kill it?
That was real messed up.
Horrifying.
No, where he's, I'm going to find the quote because it's like really bizarre. When Drogon starts eating Barcena and the boar, he says, "Oh gods," moaned Resnack, "he's eating her." The seneschal covered his mouth. Strong Belwas was retching noisily. A queer look passed across Hizdar's Zolarac's long pale face, part fear, part lust, part rapture. He licked his lips. And I was just like, why? Like, you. Right? Like, is it the violence? Is it the
I think it's
dragon.
Absolute terror that is just like so inspiring of a dragon just ripping people into pieces and like.
Is it just like the best show he's ever seen?
I think that's it, Sarah. Exactly, because he's an entertainer, right? Like he made money in the fighting pits, and like this is just an amazing spectacle for everyone to behold. And like as long as there's like a possibility of it repeating, like the attendance for his fighting pits will, remain high.
He does call for it to be killed very soon after us,
right? Because he doesn't want
some fear.
He doesn't want everyone to die, but he likes the spectacle of it.
He knows he's got 2 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, I thought when I first started, I thought it was like, oh, this is what I've married into. Like, this is what I've taken, you know what I mean? But then, like, I don't know that moment is the only time in the narrative that I've had anything but contempt for his star. And then it's just like, he becomes this monstrous figure that he hasn't been before, and I don't really think he is after. But there's this moment where like his facade slips, or like I don't know, and
he takes his mask off.
I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's intended to be like a referendum on the fighting pits, or whether it's something more about him. I don't know. It really struck me. It really stood out to me, and it was such a disturbing confluence of reactions from him. Like, I don't know. I wanted to see what you guys thought about it.
Maybe it's because we thought he was like, maybe it's because we thought that he was a patsy, that he had no agency or something. But like he went 7 times to beg Daenerys to reopen the fighting pits. And I don't think until this scene, we actually knew exactly what the fighting pits meant. Like, we knew obviously it's just 2 people against each other, but we didn't see the gore or anything like that. Maybe that's like, maybe it's just you finally see him reacting as his natural self when we've put all these other labels on him so far.
And previously to this, he's been so flippant about like the folly. It's like, oh, it'll be so great. The lions are going to rip them to pieces. It's going to be great, Your Grace. You can't stop that.
Yeah. Huh. Well, and speaking of that, just how many of the follies or whatever was going on, do you think were actual slaves like fighting for their life and not, because obviously if it happened to Tyrion and Penny, it probably happened to other people out there. It's just that was the one time he slipped and said, that they basically didn't consent to this.
Yeah, I think there is some ambiguous consent in some of these fights, definitely.
Like the 6 old women.
Right. Fighting each other with hammers and cleavers and shit.
Jesus.
But also, I mean, it also reads to the fact that like these people are so desperate, like before the crones or whoever it was could have had, some kind of station as a slave, and now that they don't, they're literally like taking, like, if I could beat the shit out of 5 other people with a hammer, I might be able to eat tonight. Like, that's pretty upsetting.
Well, I think they do mention that this is like a long-standing tradition of having these, the old and feeble and grotesque people fighting. So, like, I don't think it's a new phenomenon.
Right, but I think before they would have been slaves and made to do it, and now they're quote-unquote volunteering do it.
Yeah.
Like, before their owner would have said, okay, I have an old crone who I have no more use for, let's put her in the fighting pit. Whereas now it's just like they're willing to do it. They're going forth and saying, I'm going to do that so I can eat tonight, possibly.
But you don't think it's more like, it isn't like more of a Logan's Run kind of thing where it's like, like the North has the thing where old men during winter will say they're going out hunting and then they'll be found frozen. And this is just kind of a way for the old women or old men in Marine to go out either on top or, to...
It's nowhere near as noble as the Northerners going out to feed their families and stuff.
But especially at the time...
Well, and if they lose, they don't win, so they don't come out with anything, so it's not like their family's being fed because they sacrifice
But their family
themselves.
doesn't have to provide for another mouth.
I guess, yeah.
It just doesn't have the trappings of honor the way that the old Northerners going out... like badasses. This is just like it's a horror show. Like the society that breeds this, that you have to volunteer for this if you've got nothing else you can do. It's not nice.
You see, I never thought that northern thing was particularly noble. I think that it actually is like dehumanizing, because that's what animals do. Like when they're sick and dying, they'll leave home and like walk into the forest and to die. Like I never thought it was a noble pursuit, but I could see where.
Yeah, I think that's my thinking regarding the animal one. But I think animals can have some kind of noble behavior. I mean, it's a whole big philosophical thing. Where can you be noble if you don't understand the concept of honor and stuff like that? But it's not because it imitates what the animals do that it's not honorable. And I think in the northern men's minds, it's definitely noble.
With the winter and the old dudes, that's an imposition of nature that's forcing them to do this. But then here in the Slaver's Bay, this is a product of like this society that they've created. I think that's the difference. And like, nature you can't change, but society you can.
Yeah.
Apparently, you didn't read the climate report.
And I guess in some twisted way that Daenerys, who doesn't want the fighting pits to be open, she's sort of responsible for a lot of the people who had to volunteer to be here because she crashed their economy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that is ignoring like that. If this was still a slave society, there would be heaps and heaps and heaps of slaves churned into this pit anyway. So like the systemic violence of slavery you can't overlook that.
That's true.
Yeah, but I guess with slavery, it's still property, and you're still losing. Like slaves aren't just indispensable. Like I guess like ones that are like not obedient can be, but they're still valuable. Like I don't think anyone would just allow 6 of their slaves to go away, just for fun.
Well, we see with like the training of the Unsullied. There's a very high turnover rate, like in forging this product, and I just think there's a lot of slaves that die from slavery, obviously.
I think it's really interesting to think about the fact that even though we've talked about the orientalization of this society and the way that it's made so exotic and so other and so Eastern and all of these kind of arguably offensive ways, this blood sport aspect is so quintessentially Roman, at least from my frame of reference, and it's so Western, and it's so, I don't know, I think that's a fascinating inversion of the excesses that
well, in the Americas there's a lot of blood sport as well. I mean, the Maya, the Aztec, both
those were
engaged in,
though, weren't they, primarily? Or am I
think they're not for entertainment first. They're for making the sun move.
Do we know that all Roman gladiators was just for entertainment? Wasn't it part of Saturnalia and all that?
No, they were. It was Panem and Circenses, right? It was like to demonstrate the largesse of politicians and to quote unquote give back to the common people, and so they were like status displays, and they were political maneuvering.
Some of it would have been for the gods, but then that's why it continued all year round regardless, is because it was an economic gain for the Romans.
Yeah.
And at that part, when I asked that question, hashtag Greg is now screaming.
I don't know. I can't imagine Grandma picking up the cleaver and just walking in there, of her own free will. So this is still. I mean, this is kind of another thing that's rubbed in Daenerys' face in this whole chapter. Is that slavery is still prevalent, people still want it, and it's not going anywhere, basically.
Well, the very fine line between like institutionalized slavery and coercion and necessity, and like these are all very kind of slippery distinctions that I feel like she wants to be much simpler than they are in practice.
Right, like. What the motivations are either political or economic, and you don't really know like which one motivated any of these old women to get in, like, and whether it's their decision or their masters.
I mean, the history of a society and what created that the whole thing, the slavery and the way the society works. It's just always so complex that it's never easy to just change one big thing and hope that everything else will fall into place. I think that's made clear in these chapters, but I do wonder if maybe George too didn't kind of expect that it would be easier, and then he got stuck because he wrote that too realistically. And I think like the whole idea of how to change a society and what to do politically to bring such a huge change is maybe too much for a book that otherwise also focuses on a lot of other things, and where it's not the biggest thing in the plot, but it's huge to take on that kind of intrigue.
I think it's funny to think that like he thought he was going to solve institutionalized slavery, and then was like, "Oh wait, this is hard." And
yeah,
now
well, didn't. Yeah, I don't know if he thought he was going to change it and solve the thing entirely. I don't. Maybe not. Maybe he always planned to have this realistic take on it, but it's part of what made the whole book so complicated.
Yeah, I think. I mean, also, I think the influences that taking someone's perspective and bringing it into this, kind of otherness that you're talking about with Orientalism, and like instilling your belief structure on, an existing structure that won't accept it, and I think even though in interviews he's mentioned himself like same as Tolkien, like it's not allegory, the things that were happening in the late 2000s with the Iraq War and Afghanistan War especially, I think probably influenced him.
Her line, if I can't make my people good, maybe I can make them a little less bad, is so gross to me. Like, it's just I don't know, it's part of it is I think it bothers me because she's losing her idealistic drive, and she's kind of like getting ground down by like what she sees around her. But I also just think that it's such an arbitrary categorization, like, because especially because at the beginning of the chapter, she thinks it's so funny that they're cheering her in the same quad where she impaled all the good masters, and so she's like self-implicating in the same kind of grotesqueries that she's.
Well, that's the problem with Daenerys. Her entire thing, right? It's like everything that's not what she does is bad, and everything that she does is good, like regardless of what she actually does.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I mean, I think too, we see echoes of that with the her reflections on how the Khalasars are coming, and that they're gonna round up what are effectively slaves. And she's like, oh, well, they don't sell them. But so she's like, she never has a problem with slavery. She doesn't appear to have a problem with slavery systemically when the Dothraki are doing it, because she is a part of that power structure, and she's not trying to layer something on top of it. Yeah, like, exactly as you said, like when it's something that she's doing or something that her allies or compatriots are doing, like, it's fine. But then she has so little self-awareness. It's very disturbing to me in this chapter.
It's a bit unfair though, because like her idealism towards slavery and wanting to abolish it came after her time with the Dothraki, and I don't think here in this chapter she's thinking it's a good thing that they're bringing slaves as gifts. I think on the contrary, she's like, and on top of that, the Dothraki are coming, and they're gonna, and the Yunkai is gonna leave here with a bunch of new slaves, and that's not a good thing. So. And you've got to remember how she felt when the Dothraki would attack the cities and take slaves, quote unquote. And I think that actually pushed her towards the idea that slavery is really bad and she wants to do something about it.
I guess my objection is that she's never shown any indication or plans or even kind of like passing thoughts about needing or wanting to address or reform Dothraki practices. That she's kind of just like, yep, that's how they roll. And like, I think it's part of the way that she was enculturated, but like, I don't know. There feels like a hypocrisy here because she self-identifies with the Dothraki, and whether she self-identified initially through coercion is definitely a conversation worth having. But I don't know. There's a double standard.
She did try to save some of them. Like,
do you think she kind of forgives the Dothraki because they are kind of like this nomadic people, whereas like she sees like great cities like Astapor and Meereen as established like quote civilization that should know better?
So the Dothraki are too savage to know better, and that's why. I agree with that, and I think that might be part of her thinking. But like, oh my god,
yeah,
yeah.
It's like, oh, you guys are just fucking savages. You do whatever you want, but like, you know, these people that live in houses need to know how to live correctly.
Yeah,
but I think it's also interesting because we just saw it in the Tyrion chapter that like, okay, so he's a slave and he's serving wine and it's hard work, but that's exactly what in Westeros, what the servants do, you know? So what's the difference between a servant and a slave? And
yeah, that's why I put that in the recap, because he's like, oh, this is actually kind of hard. And you're like, oh, is it? Because, you know.
You've been served everything your entire life.
Yeah, right? Like.
Well, I mean, you kind of put in on our modern ideas into her world. She's trying to take down, I mean, potentially a multi-billion gold dragon, whatever, economy all on her own. And she's got the right idea, and of course she's going to make some mistakes. She's fucking 16 or whatever. I mean, at least she's done it. At least she's tried it, and at least she's taken that step, you know?
I never really thought that she was forgiving of the Dothraki for their practices. Like, when she's thinking about them, it's because of the fear she has for her people. She doesn't want them going into the markets because she knows that the Dothraki are going to conquer the surrounding villages and bring them over to Astapor and Meereen and Slaver's Bay, you know, in Yunkai, excuse me.
Yeah.
But is it because they're not her Khalasar that she can't really do anything to them? Because she does change who she has command over.
She also has that moment with Iri and Jikri, though, when they're bickering over who's going to win, and she's like, "Oh, they're Dothraki. Like, blood is part of their part of their society. But that's not okay for the Astapor." I don't know. I don't think that she's being deliberately hypocritical, and I don't think that necessarily that there's really anything she could do differently. It just struck me like very hard in this chapter that she has such a tenuous self-awareness as far as like what she's okay with and what she isn't. Like she's not.
Well, it's definitely a wake up for her, and it probably, you know, God knows in 2050 when we get the Winds of Winter, maybe we'll see that this is a turning point and the start of her. You know, everyone's been telling her to go to Westeros and all this, but she's had it in mind that exactly that if she leaves, slavery will just pop up again, and Yunkai, Astapor, Meereen will go business as usual. And maybe this is a turning point for her becoming more callous. And when she gets on Drogon and flies off and leaves everyone in the shit, then, you know, it's the beginning of her becoming more selfish, I guess, and thinking about, right, fuck this place, I'm getting my throne.
Yeah, because when I was rereading these chapters, there was a part that I guess I blew over it as a Daenerys fan. Like, there's one, she's hearing about all this happening with the Astapori outside of Meereen, and she thinks to herself, I'm sick unto death of the people. Like, and I've never really, like, wow, that was a really harsh thought of the people who are calling you mother.
Yeah. Well, then in the pit, she thinks, I'm not your mother. Like,
yeah, like over time, her thoughts are changing. And then we get to the next chapter where Fire and Blood.
I think, like, do you think she actually rationally took the decision to leave and go to Westeros when she got on Drogon? Because I did think so. Like, it was an impulse, and she clearly didn't intend for him to carry her away without any control.
Right. But I think she hopped on Drogon and was like, "Jesus, take the wheel."
But it's a selfish lust. I mean, why didn't she try and cower Drogon or scare him off, or I don't know, send him away? You know, it's almost kind of similar to Hizdahr looking at Drogon and licking his lips. She looks at Drogon and she's like, she has the whip in her hand and she's like, "Fuck it, I'm doing this."
You ever looked at the dragon there, Noah?
I think it's kind of a like impulse to become a dragon rider, and that she knows in that moment that she cannot run away from him, and if she wants to tame him at any point, it's gotta be now, and that's why she does it. It's like this impulse to finally get her dragon and become a dragon rider.
But she doesn't tame him, does she?
Can we talk? Yeah, can we talk about the whip for a second? Because I think that's one of the most disturbing.
It's very
Marie,
disturbing.
Go ahead and finish your point, and then
my thought is, well, I'm not sure entirely, but I think usually dragon riders actually have a saddle and some kind of bridle or something.
Chains.
Yeah, that they can use, and she clearly doesn't have that, and she has no training, and like, she doesn't entirely tame him, but he doesn't throw her off his back, so he kind of accepts her as his rider, but she has no control over him. So it's not an entirely she hasn't won entirely, but she kind of she still became his rider.
If you look at the Drogon as the personification of Fire and Blood Daenerys, the Drogon only does what Dany wants when it is that. So as they start flying off in the next chapter and she's like, "No, take me back to Meereen," and Drogon doesn't do that. But when she is like, "Drogon, take me back to Westeros again," that's the point where Drogon finally comes back to her. So yeah, very much Fire and Blood Daenerys.
It reminds me of a different Targaryen, completely different personality. Aemond One Eye, when he's fighting his half brothers or whatever.
No, his nephew.
Yes.
Yeah.
When he's like, "Uncle, you've lived too long," and he's like, "Yep," and then
no. When he's way younger and he claims Vhagar. When he first claims Vhagar, and just kind of reacts, and he's in this fight and shit's going down. Obviously, it's a bunch of 10-year-olds or whatever, and not blood and gore in a fight.
But he jumps on Vhagar without thinking about it.
Exactly. And it speaks to me of that. It reminds me of that sort of impulse that a Targaryen might have.
Yeah, I think this is a good. This chapter is good evidence of my theory that the closer she becomes to the dragons, the more dragony she gets. So like we think about it like in terms of the dragon sort of acquiescing to the personality of the rider, but I really do think that for the Targaryens it's much more reciprocal than that. And
I like that word, dragony.
Dragony.
Yeah, what is dragony? Like, they want to fly and eat and make little dragons?
No, like that they want to burn stuff and eat shit, and
we all get a bit of dragony from time to time.
Right.
So do you think Drogon came to her because he felt her emotions, or because he heard the fighting pits, the cacophony?
Both.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of like blood in the air or whatever that kind of.
She's a warg.
But like she's a
warg, Harry.
Who said that? What son of a bitch said that?
She's so inundated, like with her senses. Like she's so overwhelmed with like smell and sound and the blood and the bowels and the like this grotesque spectacle. I mean, she calls it an abattoir, right? Like she calls it a slaughterhouse. And I think there's a there's a build in the narrative where she becomes so almost like animalistically assaulted by her senses, and then it's right then that Drogon shows up. And
but didn't you feel that during like the dancing people that were fucking, and when what's his name came back and they're doing like backflips onto guys' dicks?
Yeah,
that was a
that was
one.
before she shagged Dario and his doll. You know, that was just being a bit horny. Been a long time.
But it's like, it's in this one, it's violence, and I think it's a very specific kind of like sensory overload. I don't know. Like I definitely see what you're saying, but I wonder almost if she isn't getting like a double sense of it, like that she's not responding in some way to the way that Drogon is perceiving it. The other thing that I wanted to go back to is the whip that she has. And I think in this chapter, like that's another really disturbing moment for me where I think it speaks to the extent to which she has internalized what's been going on around her in a way that she doesn't even fully recognize. Like she sees herself as stripping off the tokar and stripping off the floppy ears, but when she's confronting Drogon, she's in the smoldering red pits of Drogon's eyes. Dany saw her own reflection, how small she looked, how weak and frail and scared. I cannot let him see my fear. She scrabbled in the sand, pushing against the pitmaster's corpse, and her fingers brushed against the handle of his whip. Touching it made her feel braver. The leather was warm, alive. And then that's how she tames him, is with the pitmaster's whip. And I just, I was so struck by the fact that her way of countering her fear in this moment and both comforting herself and making herself feel brave and then projecting this image of bravery and power is with something that has become in the narrative just the quintessential symbol of the oppression and violence of Slaver's Bay specifically.
But isn't that like how you overcome fear, through mastery? Like, you know, you dominate whatever you're afraid of?
In Slaver's Bay, I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying, that like she feels at this point empowered by the systemic oppression that she is ostensibly positioning herself against. Like it was just a really disturbing internalization of the very symbols that she seems to be rejecting.
I had a similar feeling of disappointment and disgust because it reminded me of the scene in the chapter in Astapor when she is quote unquote selling Drogon to Krasny's, and
yes,
he has the scourge in his hand, and she tells him, you know, he's not listening because a dragon is no slave, or she has it in her hand and she uses it against him. And if a dragon is no slave, you're using a slaver's weapon to tame your dragon. So that was a weird comparison.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it might just be you need a whip to maneuver dragons in the same way you need a whip to make horses do stuff.
I wouldn't say
a crop, so it's nicer.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say you need it as a horse rider myself, but I think though from my recent reading of Fire and Blood that they may have actually a whip. I mean, even usually they have a whip. I mean.
Yeah, all the previous Targaryens use whips when they control their dragons. I mean, I do see the imagery is very slave-like. Perhaps if you think of Drogon as a personification of Daenerys, this is putting herself in check.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an external beast, but I don't know. It is complicated.
But with the Pitmaster's whip, like I don't know, I found that so disturbing. And Marie, you're right, I also noticed that the whip is a standard piece of equipment for the dragon riders in Fire and Blood, but I do just feel like the way that the whip is so, like in Tyrion's chapters and all of the insights that we have with the Harpy's fingers also, as you pointed out, like that the whip is such a representative in her world of oppressive power and violence, and that she has internalized it to the extent that she's like, that's her only recourse in this. And not only that, but she's like, I'm not doing this because I have to, I'm doing it because it makes me feel strong and brave and comfortable. Like,
it's kind of like all the things that she didn't want to lean, like all the things she's been avoiding, now she has to kind of lean into it. You kind of have to be more aggressive. You have to pick up the whip. You have to be Fire and Blood.
Yeah. And like how, I mean, even if that's not a Slaver's Bay impulse, like doesn't that just underline how ultimately similar the Targaryen system is to the system in Slaver's Bay.
The dragons are a force of domination, and like it's cool that Daenerys is freeing the slaves, but ultimately, you know, the Valyrians and using the dragons, it is a form of domination of people.
Yeah, like she's not breaking the wheel, she's just replacing it with like a bigger, hotter wheel.
The Valyrians were assholes though. They used slavery a lot and they refined it into an economy.
And it's implied that they were sacrificing the slaves down on the volcanoes as like blood magic or whatever.
Yeah, that's how the Faceless Men came about.
Exactly.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it's weird because Martin has said, you know, this Slaver's Bay, it really doesn't matter. Westeros is all that matters. So I'm just wondering, I mean, I know he's put thought into it, but it's weird hearing that, you know, after we discussed all of this, that this really isn't, it's just a sandbox for Daenerys and her allies for now.
It matters in how it affects Daenerys and her mindset. So it's influential on her going forward and how it's going to affect her interactions with people. So I think, that quote, gives off, it reads badly.
She's never been to Westeros. She doesn't know what she's missing. But she sees it here. She sees the pain, the struggling, and feels responsible for it.
Does anybody think that now that, as far as like Dany's storyline goes, she's been the only POV chapter or the only POV narrator that has anything to do with her storyline until now? Do you guys think that our opinion of Dany may change going forward? I mean, obviously I think it is, but we kind of always see her as this hero, I guess. Do you think that now that we're going to get other points of view, we're going to finally start changing that?
Well, she's one of the heroes, right?
What?
Like, you think she's one of the heroes, right? Like
Jon Snow, or
Jon Snow. Like she's a good guy, or compared to all the quote bad guys.
Right. Do you think we only view her that way because we haven't gotten other people's point of view on anything that has to do with her storyline, really?
I think you're right. I think that's going to start coming into it, and I think we get a hint of that in Feast Dance with all of the rumors about her. Like, so it's events that we've seen from her perspective, but then we get things like, oh, the Dragon Queen doesn't respect envoys and she sacrifices people to her dragons and things, and we're like, well, yeah, I mean, but they were jerks, like when it happened. But from an external perspective, we start to see more and more of like how those things are from a very objective point of view, like very much not okay.
Right. Yeah. I just think like she like crucified like 160 something people in that square. Right. I mean, and in her mind, and we were reading from her point of view, it's like, okay, she did it for a reason, which not a great reason, but.
Well, I mean, it was justice, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you could put like
people to regret that.
Yeah, you could like behead them or hang them and not like crucify them in the middle of a square. But
well, yeah, it's the kind of thing you do if you're going to leave. But if you're going to make peace, you don't do that.
I mean, in any case, regardless of the consequences, it's something harsh to do and quite violent and cruel. And that's a part of her personality that we kind of have to acknowledge.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the fandom forgives her for things like that because we see it from her perspective. Whereas if we were, if there was a POV from a Miranese person, then she would be just like this monster. She would be like the Bloody Mummers coming in, like how terrible we see them. Like I feel like she would be viewed like that.
Yeah, but I feel like the entire series has a lot of that. Like we forgive Tyrion a lot. We forgive Jaime after he makes his, kind of character pivot a lot.
Well, some of us do.
Right. But I think it's based on the POVs that like these are characters that we know and we can understand and we hear their inner monologue and why they did it. So it makes sense to us. But, in the end of the day, they still did this horrible action that we're saying that like, it's okay because I know him. But standing from the outside,
it's a bit more complicated than that, though. Like I think even in the real world, when you know someone, or even not necessarily know them personally, but you try to understand the reasons behind an act, you realize that for most of it, people are not all bad or all good. It's way more complicated than that. Obviously, in the real world, I'm not talking about people crucifying other people. I'm talking about easier stuff. But it's kind of the same with these characters. I mean, we can seeing Jaime from his point of view, we also see his thoughts, his past, the way all of it comes together to bring him to do this act and that thing. And we also see him getting better and doing honorable stuff. So all of this mixes up, and we end up feeling kind of sorry for him, or at least forgiving him in a way. But it does not necessarily mean that we forgive terrible acts just because we know the people. It means that we have empathy because we're human beings, and so we understand, even if we still find the acts themselves abominable. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No. Yeah.
That was good.
I'm thinking about Melisandre as like a half black with rot onion, right? Like how fresh an onion is Daenerys, if we're being totally objective about it. Like is she a salvageable onion, or is she,
I feel like right from the start of Daenerys' storyline, going back all the way to A Game of Thrones, there's always been moral ambiguity to her actions, and like what she's tried to do. Like Marie Mazdua points out, there are consequences from what you've done. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily going to be like a pure white to dark villain transition. I do think she's going to display moral ambiguity and ride the line in the upcoming books. But I wouldn't see it's like a hero's fall from grace, because again, in Storm of Swords, even in A Clash of Kings, there have been negative impacts of her actions.
Well, and I think too, the ambiguity is amplified, not just with her, but with all the characters we've seen. The ambiguity in them is amplified by the extent to which they are able to achieve power, because their ambiguous actions have greater impact. So now that she has a dragon, her actions, however ambiguous they are going to be amplified in their fallout. And I think that may be the point at which, or the reason that she becomes increasingly problematic, is because her reach will become increased, right? That everything she does is going to be that much more impactful, and thus that much more ambivalent.
And I think reader opinion might change when she starts doing these horrible things to other characters that they care about in places that they care about. Because so far, Marine doesn't really matter. But when she gets to Westeros...
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, we assume that Tyrion's on his way. What's his fucking name? Barristan's there. Like, there's already people coming into Marine that we already know and love, and we'll see what happens with them, especially Jorah Mormont, Tyrion, Barristan.
Why was Brown Ben gonna bring Tyrion to Dany? Just because he was a Lannister?
Yeah.
Cersei. Sort of bring Cersei, right?
Peace offering. No, he says in the middle chapter that he was going to give Daenerys a gift, but he couldn't pay the price.
Yeah, he was outbid.
I think being that he's a Lannister,
was that Mormont?
The Lannisters are the ones who sacked King's Landing, and his brother is the person who killed her father. I think that, just bringing her a Lannister.
Why? Why does he
again
want
just to show
bring
that
her
gifts? No hard feelings.
Okay, but that means paying quite a lot of money for it, and I think I find that weird.
Tyrion wasn't that expensive. It was when Tyrion started jacking the price up by going crazy.
Yeah,
it's a small box at least for that gift.
And it allows Brown Ben Plum to keep his options open. Like, he clearly doesn't want Daenerys to be super pissed off at him.
Mm-hmm. Right. And he's doing his shtick, like riding the fence on both sides, making, that gift would have placated Daenerys so he wouldn't be killed outright, and then she even still thinks, maybe he should be removed.
Can I ask a question?
No, never.
So it it says at the beginning of this chapter that they let Pretty Maris go. And it also says that she wanted to talk to Dany. And then it also says that Quentyn and company wanted to talk to Dany. And so my question was whether what Quentyn wanted to say to her was the same thing that Maris wanted to say to her, or whether it was two separate conversations that they were going to have. And if two separate, then what do you think Quentyn wanted to talk to her about?
Well, Quentyn wanted to talk to her about Westeros, and Pretty Maris wanted to talk about the Tattered Prince and regaining Pentos, I imagine.
So do you really think that Quentyn was going to be like, but for real though, like, are you going to come help? You know, I mean, it just seems like after the whole dragon conversation, like.
So Quentyn sneaks in with the band with Pretty Maris, who are defectors, and then Quentyn reveals himself and says, "Oh hey, I'm the Prince of Dawn. By the way, these defectors were a ploy from the Tattered Prince, and that causes them to be arrested." And so
do you think Maris was going to kill?
We wanted to see if we could work things out. But as Dany thinks in this chapter, you know, how much of this is true?
Yeah, because it says something like, you know, Quentyn wants to talk to you if it please your grace, and she's like, nothing about this day pleases me. Like, so she says some other day, and then later it says that like Maris wanted to talk to her. So I guess it kind of, I also maybe wondered a little bit if he was just going to ask her if he could have a dragon. Like,
that's what I took out of it.
Right? Yeah.
I thought that he was gonna. I mean, and then the next action that he does is he tries to steal a dragon. So. Yeah,
like that would have been such a baller from him. Like, I don't know. I kind of wish we had seen that conversation. Like, if she just would have been like, "I'm fucking fine. Go try and like, what are you even doing? Get out of here."
I don't even know what to do with these things.
Yeah, like I mean, what would Quentyn have done with a dragon? Dorne is fine on its own. Like, it's a whole marriage to the Targaryens that bring him into the Seven Kingdoms that would benefit him. Just having a dragon, I mean...
Well, it would bind Quentyn to Daenerys' cause. Like, it's not just have a dragon. You can have a dragon, but you have to, you know, be in with my interests as well.
But he doesn't give a shit about Meereen. All he cares about is advancing Dorne's position.
Yeah, but by giving a shit about Meereen and helping Daenerys, he is helping Daenerys to get the fuck out of there.
No, but that's why it would benefit Dany ostensibly to give him a dragon. But why would he want a dragon? I think is what.
Well, he doesn't want to come back empty-handed.
Exactly.
And it's like, I got a fucking dragon. love me, daddy, please.
Oh my god, fan art. I want to see Quentyn riding in on a dragon being like, I got a fucking dragon.
Shirtless on a dragon.
Daddy, I have a dragon.
I think it was more so the Sand Snakes. He's trying to impress a lot of different women who he thinks are looking down on him. So
okay, that's great.
I also read it as he's trying to prove to Dany that he's worthy of her attention. And that she should take a second look at him. Well, you know, like, she'll have to listen to me now if I get up on one of these fucking dragons, you know?
I mean, his offer makes him worthy of her attention. Like, him getting on a dragon makes it like, all right, well.
I don't feel like he's particularly invested in getting her. I don't feel like he's particularly invested in getting the dragon. Like, he's just, oh, God, he's just a mess.
He's ultimately driven by his need to impress others and not let them down. And Daenerys and the dragon are just means to get that.
Daddy issues.
Daddy issues.
He can die, it's okay.
And he did.
But will he die? No, he's... Oh yeah, Bina's not here anymore. Okay, he's dead.
Yeah, now that Bina's gone, I'm so amused by this theory. Like, to me, it's thematically really clear that Quentyn is dead. Like, Barristan has that line, some men were not meant to dance with dragons, and like, that's Quentyn's story, it's done. But
well, he's going to be the thing that Doran is pissed off with Dany about, right, later on.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to hear a tale by Garrus Drinkwater about how Dany laughed at him and spurned him and fucked Daenerys, and it's going to be a tragic irony.
Right. That's what's going to keep the Dorne.
But then it's going to be all part part of. I mean, Daenerys is like one of the few slingshots that George uses, where it's like, you want her to go to Westeros? You sure? You really do? You really do? Okay, fuck it. She's going and going to kill everyone, and you're going to hate her.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he did that kind of with Theon a bit. You know, step by step, watching him be an absolute arsehole, and we want to punish him. And then when it comes, holy fuck, we don't want this.
It's always the fist pump moment. The thing that you want to happen, you regret it later. Because you were really excited when she liberated the Unsullied and Astapor, and then what happened later.
Absolutely.
Well, isn't that always the case? Like, you're excited for one action, and then a couple of years later, you're like, what the fuck?
But there's just no relief. You would think at a certain point that, okay, we can enjoy this, and it didn't turn out bad. But, you know, Robb is king in the North. Oh, wait, what happened? The Red Wedding?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's, I mean, George playing with expectations, right? Trying to...
Yeah.
But
a different kind of kick in the nuts.
Well, it's also, I mean, it plays, people have talked about this in the Arya chapters when she gets the three wishes, essentially, that she's like the fairy tale princess or whatever. But I do think that the Dany fulfilling our expectations is a kind of interesting version of the foolish wish that you get in a lot of fairy tales and narratives, where like almost like be careful what you wish for, right? Like the more she accomplishes, the more uncomfortable with it we become, and the more kind of like upsetting it is rather than edifying.
Well, I find it's like only upsetting when you think about it. Because really we want Arya to like be fucking badass and like this great killer and everything, and then you're like, oh my god, this 12-year-old's a badass killer.
Yeah.
She's a psycho. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be Stannis and Fagon duking it out, and then Stannis finally learns his lesson, and the Grinch grows a heart.
I love it.
And then she comes and kills them all.
Love it. Noah, write it up.
Oh my god.
I just had one last thing.
Yeah.
Bina's typing.
Okay, so we all know about the 5-year gap that was supposed to happen between Storm of Swords and Feast and Dance. And I think, some people think that some of the chapters that we have now, with Feast and Dance and with the Winds of Winter, some of the characters feel like there was actually the 5-year leap, even though they don't change in age. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking in this chapter with Drogon, the way he's written is like he's way bigger than he actually is. So he's supposed to be 20 feet wingspan here, but it just feels like he's like 40 foot, like a plane. So I don't know.
But like how you imagine
isn't she paying people off for like, you know, him eating their daughters and goats and everything? Like he's going to be a big boy.
Yeah, we get an exact size, and it's hard for me to picture what it is in my head, so I got out a tape measure and I looked up other animals of a comparison size.
That's
awesome.
Big.
So the albatross has like 11-foot wingspan, so it'd be double that, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just think, like we said, like we could compare it to a plane. Well, imagine these people who have never seen something that big. They've never seen a plane. They've never seen anything of this sheer size that's a living creature. So I think that like a 20-foot wingspan on something would be pretty alarming if you've never seen some, you know.
Also,
especially as a dragon.
Yeah. One is lift, and the other one is actually kinetic action.
But I got really nerdy, and I looked up. So there's some pictures of like one of the largest flying creatures ever live. It's extinct now, thank goodness. And if you just look at it side by side, there's a person standing next to a model of it, and I was like, I mean, if that was a dragon, I'd be afraid of it. But it's not that big. Its wings wouldn't sound like thunder.
Is it a pteranodon? Is that what it is?
It's a giant bird. I can't pronounce the name. Something Argentinus. Magnificens. Yeah,
God damn! How nerdy is it that you went and looked that up, and then Sarah knew something about it, and I immediately knew the span of an albatross. God damn.
I think everyone wins
Welcome
today.
to VOK. Yeah.
You got some history. You got some biology.
That kind of stuff when I'm watching Shark Week. Because they're like, oh, the great white shark is, 12 to 20 feet. I'm like, that fucking means nothing to me. Like, I don't, like, it's big, right? But if you think about it in terms of a 2-story house, like his wingspan would be from roof to ground, roughly, of a 2-story house.
Yeah.
Which is like pretty.
It's pretty big.
Impressive.
But height-wise, he would also be like 3 feet tall. But this is all like that. Like there's like a certain ratio between wingspan to body length and height. It's all weird. But like he would only be, based on his wingspan, he'd be like 3 feet tall.
How could he possibly carry?
Welcome to the Wingspan podcast.
Welcome to the Wingspan podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, also known as the Aviator.
He's also got some hydrogen in his body that allows him to float. That's what makes the fire come out.
Oh.
We're getting realistic. But no, he's
as realistic as we can about dragons.
There's no flying creature ever that could carry the person. I'm sorry,
they're
what?
Basically angry Hindenburgs. Is that what you're telling me?
Pretty much.
Okay. I buy that.
I read this somewhere about this extra bit of hydrogen gives them the lift they need to be able to fly or whatever.
Yeah, I buy that.
Was it the documentary If Dragons Were Real or something?
I think so.
I've seen that, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Is that like the same people that were like, we found mermaids?
I think so. I know it's free on YouTube if anybody wants to waste their time.
I do.
I do too.
That's pretty good. But yeah, it's really hard for me to visualize in my head how big the dragon. Because Martin's kind of vague about it. He never really gives us a wingspan for the two in the dragon pit, Rhaegal and Viserion, and Quentin is supposed to ride them. And I just thought if they're smaller than Drogon, then they must be. They can't be rideable. And I haven't read Fire and Blood, and I know that one of the dragons was just barely big enough to be ridden. Mm-hmm. I think Moondancer.
Well, you can ride an ostrich.
Yeah, Baela's Moondancer.
You can ride an ostrich.
I can't remember the wingspan of memory, though.
No, they don't fly, but you can still ride them.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
you can ride a lot of things.
I just had this image of Quentin, like
ominous much,
like gathering all of his strength and mustering all of his courage and stuff, and like leaping on Viserion and just like flattening him, like flapping and like can't get off the ground. That would be amazing. Oh my god, I'm so happy. Now I hope he's alive.
Oh, God.
Get off me. That was just my nerdy detour.
No, that was a good discussion. I liked our wingspan discussion.
Oh my god, that was
insane.
Yeah.
You're fucking insane.
Yeah.
This is the Aviator over and out. We can go into
right. So I think we should
let's do Arianne, please.
Yeah, we'll jump over to Arianne. This is a TWOW preview chapter.
Go on, Varley.
All right. Arianne Martell is traveling towards Ghost Hill with her companions, her new sworn sword, Daemon Sand, her bastard cousin, Elia Sand, Jane Lady Bright, and Sir Josh Hood, Sir Jeribald Shells, and Nate. All right, Nate. Elia Sand has left Sunspear to go back to Hellholt, her father Harmon Uller's seat. Okay, anyway. Seat with Lorenza, whoever the fuck that is. Doria Sand remains at the Water Gardens, hidden among the children, and Obella Sand is dispatched to Sunspear as a cupbearer. Alaria's sand snakes are now scattered so as to better to survive the carnage. Arianne and her group travel for 2 days and 2 nights, and Arianne starts to reminisce. She thinks about how she and Daemon Sand, once so close, grew apart after Doran Martell had refused to let her marry Daemon. She thinks about Spotted Silva, Dre, and Garen, and about how one of them must have betrayed her. She misses her friends, and she misses Ari Zokar as well, more than she expected. She believes he charged into Ariahota's axe because he could not live with what he had done. All of Arianne's... Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. If she believes that Ariahota betrayed her, then why is she thinking about all her other friends betrayed her? Get your shit together, Westeros.org. All of Arianne's friends have suffered because of her plot, except for Darkstar, Sir Gerald Dane, who fooled Arianne with his good looks. Obara Sand has been sent to hunt Darkstar down, and Arianne is convinced that her cousin is up to the task, especially since Ario is with her. But Daemon warns her that Darkstar could kill Obara just as easy when she confides in him. The second day of their journey, they move at a more sedate pace, and Arianne commands Daemon to tell her all he knows about John Connington. But all he can tell her is information Arianne had already learned from her father. What Daemon tells her does leave her thinking, and that night in her tent, she reads the letter Jon sent to Prince Doran, informing her that Aegon Targaryen, Elia Martell's son by Rhaegar Targaryen, is still alive and asking for help of Dorne. But Prince Doran has his doubts. Arianne knows as well. He was expecting a dragon to return to Westeros, but this was not the one he was waiting for. They have not heard anything about Daenerys Targaryen and Quentyn Martell, and Prince Doran worries. 2 Dornish armies have amassed, and one word from Arianne will make them march. On the 3rd day of their journey, they reach Ghost Hill, where they sup with Lady Nymeria Tolland and her 2 daughters, and here Arianne learns that Griffin's Roost, Rainhouse, Crow's Nest, Mistwood, and Greenstones have fallen to the Golden Company, with certainty that there are rumors about Tarth, Cape Wrath, and half of the Stepstones having fallen to them as well. Lady Valena Tolland also tells her that there are elephants in the Rainwood, and Arianne takes this to mean that Quentyn has not yet returned. Lady Nymeria and Valena go on to discuss the fighting on the Stepstones. Lady Nymelia's youngest daughter, Tiora Tolland, has a different opinion. She has dreamed about dragons, and everywhere the dragons danced, people died. That night, Arianne tries to seduce Sir Daemon, but he resists, so they talk about whether or not Aegon could have truly survived. Arianne voices Doran's wishes, but her answers to Daemon's questions do not truly reflect her feelings inside. She wishes that Quentyn had returned, but cannot stop thinking about how silly King Quentyn sounds, or how silly Quentyn riding a dragon would be. They continue their voyage on a ship called the Peregrine, where Arianne and Daemon discuss Viserys Targaryen, the Beggar King. Arianne wonders why Daenerys allowed Viserys to be killed by her own husband, Khal Drogo, when quote, perhaps Daenerys realized that once her brother was crowned and wed to me, she would be doomed to spend the rest of her life sleeping in a tent and smelling like a horse. And when she tells Daemon that Daenerys is the Mad King's daughter, wondering if she is Taint as well, Taint, Daemon answers, we cannot know, we can only hope.
I can't stand this character.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was so much worse than the one I reviewed.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm sweating.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I have a large glass of bourbon, mate.
Really, I think one of the only points in this chapter could possibly be that this is going to be what's going to push Dorne against Daenerys and make them back Aegon. I mean, just because obviously Arianne is probably pissed off still about Viserys dying, even though she's never met him and he was a total dick. But yeah, she's asking why she thinks that Daenerys would allow Viserys to be killed. So I think that's part of setting up Dorne against.
It's classic projection, because this is what Arianne was worried about, that she would be put aside when Quentyn becomes king.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can't really blame Arianne. It is very frustrating, because we know that, again, Viserys was a dick. Dany didn't want any of this. It's not what it seems.
Well, it's also looking down on the Dothraki as if they're just some stupid savages to be controlled. Like, Khal Drogo didn't have his own plans and ambitions and would have been, Dany had let him kill Viserys.
And it's just like you said, it's projection, because a couple of books ago, she was thinking about making moves against Quentyn. But now his death might spur her towards being against Daenerys.
Mm.
I think the takeaway here is that Arianne still hasn't processed her feelings of being looked over by Quentyn. And that might come back to harm. It might lead Dorne in a bad direction.
So, do you think Tiora Tolland, who is the girl that dreamed of dragons and everywhere they dance, everywhere they dance, people died, is a part Targaryen or something? Yeah. She's having those dragon dreams?
They can... Oh, wait. She's a Tolland.
She's Rhaella.
Oh.
She's Daenerys.
Yeah, she reminded me of Eggs. Is it his older brother who drank? Darren the Drunkard? Who drinks because of the dragon dreams? She's clearly eating her feelings.
It reminds me of Owen the Oath at the Wall, who predicts the king's going to come and save the day.
Oh yeah.
Just like a random person who has prophetic dreams. And isn't she? I mean, clearly, because I didn't read this chapter. Is she? She's portrayed as, or her family think of her as a bit stupid or dim-witted, as they say.
Yeah.
When she says this, they're like, "What are your stupid dreams again?" Like she's had dreams of stuff before.
Just like Own the Oath. But,
this is another such a random passing example of the way that magic in this world is simultaneously completely disregarded, but then also so everyday. It's such a weird, nobody thinks it's weird that she's having dreams, but they kind of don't believe her. But then also in the narrative, they're just like, oh yeah, she's fucking dragon dreams. That's the thing.
And there are dragons. There are legitimate dragons in this world. How are you not worried that this might actually mean the thing that you want to come from Slaver's Bay to Westeros might actually be a bad thing? And then she's using the term dance dragons. There was a previous Dance of Dragons.
Yeah.
Wasn't what's his name? Dolorous Ed a Tolland?
No, Tollett. From the Vale.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and just because I had to look up this house because I'm not super familiar with them, their sigil is a dragon biting its own tail.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's based on when the Targaryens tried to conquer Dawn. They did some technique against them or whatever.
They sent their fool. They sent their fool and said as their champion or whatever, and said that was the Lord of the House, but it was actually their fool. And when they died, he came back to their castle, and they were all gone, I guess. So I think
they say. Oh, sorry. Good.
No, I was just saying. I think that, and then shortly after that, they changed their sigil to a dragon biting its own tail. So I guess that's just
Yeah, they explain it here. A dragon eating its own tail. From the days of Aegon's conquest, he did not conquer here. Elsewhere, he burned his foes, him and his sisters. But here we melted away before him, leaving only stone and sand for them to burn, and round the dragons went, snapping at their tails for want of any other food, till they were tied in knots.
I guess I'm just wondering then, I mean, if she is having these dragon dreams, is there some sort of, in history, some sort of Targaryen overlap where they married or,
Well, what if it's just
it doesn't have to be Targaryen blood. There are other seers and prophets. It could be First Men blood, because we know there is some First Men blood down in Dawn. I mean, there are other ways this could manifest.
It's only one dream about a dragon.
Doesn't the Ghost of Highheart mention dragons too, though? Or no? Am I misremembering?
Well, she has visions.
Yeah. Well, not dream. Yeah, but no, she dreams, right? Doesn't she dream?
Yeah. She dreams. Because they won't give her rest. That's what she says.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe they don't necessarily have to be Targaryen to have these dragon dreams. Or, yeah.
Jojen Reed has dreams as well, obviously. Green dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then just look at this starts with the wargame ability and stuff. So I think just different houses have different things going on.
Yeah.
Because Jaime has some fucking crazy dream at one point too, right? Where he's down in the
beneath Casterly Rock with Brienne.
He's sleeping on a weirwood stump.
Yeah, and he's he's sleeping on the weirwood stump, and he's fighting off ring wraiths.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It's like training mode on Two Towers.
There's more promise of Krakens, which if that doesn't pay off.
Most important mention of this chapter, Krakens.
Yeah. Although I wonder if it's metaphorical, if it's Krakens.
What about the elephants?
Those are
Krakens, Trump.
All right, Harry.
Krakens are more important.
Yeah. And then isn't it the guy the Waters that Cersei had the hots for, and she let him build all those ships? Isn't he the Lord of the Waters?
Orain Waters.
Yeah, Orain
Waters.
Orain Beefcake Waters.
Right.
Orain Fine Thing.
Blonde Bombshell.
Isn't this him, the one with the real warships, 3 deckers, monstrous large?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or is it
no doubt in my mind?
Okay, that's so funny though. Fucking Cersei, god damn it.
Because we're a bit devoid of good stuff in this chapter. What has happened to Salador Saan? Is he not maybe this pirate king? by any?
Nah.
No chance.
I think if you do the math, he's also making his way down the narrow sea, but he hasn't quite made it to the stepstones. We need the linear reread document because he's defected. But the geography doesn't quite match.
Well, how long ago was Davos in White Harbor? Surely that wasn't that. That was a while ago.
That was many episodes ago from us, but
yeah.
But
I'm not sure it's so
time.
long ago. Yeah.
But he wasn't in White Harbor. He was in. He got dropped off in the Sisters.
Yeah. I guess that's the point. Wasn't it Bina last episode saying a year ago Renly died or whatever? Just so much shit happens every day.
Yeah.
Just like the real world.
I mean, over these 4 chapters, we only went through 3 days and had Cersei's trial thrown in there too. So I mean, it's like 5 major events that happened over 3 days.
It's good to know that Cersei's trial actually occurred.
Well, I think the reason they said that was because from whatever her walk of atonement, or whatever, there was a marker in a chapter that said that 3 days later would be her trial. So I don't think...
Right, I think that was probably Kevin's epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the most recent.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's good to know that it actually occurred and that she didn't do something that would prevent that.
At least
that would be stupid.
So, yeah, I mean, anything else on this chapter? Anything in general? I know.
I mean, I've got a few John Con things, but I feel like maybe that's stealing from a future episode.
I like how they're discussing, did he have a wife? No, he didn't have a wife. Well, did he have a paramour? No, he didn't have a paramour.
He had a silver prince.
That's all he needed.
Yeah.
Sexy.
Does anyone else feel like Arianne is just a horrifying one-trick pony? Like she is.
Sorry, what?
She's like she just strikes me as such a one-trick pony. She's like, can I sleep with it? No.
Right.
Can I fuck it?
Oh, I don't know what to do now. And you're like, oh.
I mean, I really do admire her moxie, but she is so fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Like she can't do anything right.
It's just irritating to me, I think, because like there's so much potential that we see with like the different like value systems in Dorne, right? The sort of more equal division of like sexuality and inheritance and all these. I mean, it seems like a very egalitarian, sort of progressive or open society in a lot of ways. And I just feel like in Arianne, like the way that's been harnessed into the narrative is just that she's kind of a slut, and that's so disappointing. Like she's just like, well, I'm gonna sleep with it, and it's like, well, okay, but like there are other ways. I mean, she's like, yeah, but the gods made me pretty. Too bad Quentin's ugly. Like she's just, it feels so superficial with her, and it could be, I think, so much more as far as like expanding our worldview. And is she just like, oh god, she's just so. Ugh. I don't know. She bothers me.
I do think we are going to get some character development and progression with Arianne. Like, for her to stay this static would be unsatisfying. So there will be some changes happening. Like, she will wisen up as she does her political navigation.
Wow.
I feel that's very optimistic of you. But
well, this is just my theory, so I can't. But thematically, that feels like the only acceptable outcome.
Well, hopefully he combines this one with the next one, and we get a bit more of that.
Yeah.
In the real Arianne too.
We know that these chapters definitely need a little bit more editing, for sure. Just to see if he's actually going to allow an editor to touch it. That's.
We want the book, but we don't want a 3,000-page novel.
Right. We want a good book. Yeah. Exactly.
Not a lot to ask.
I'll take anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to these first chapters in the book, like I'll give a pass to like the first chapter just being a set things up, remind the reader what's going on. But yeah, both Arianne 1 and 2 feel like that. Like it really does need to just be one chapter.
Well, isn't the prologue supposed to be Jane Westerling?
Someone said that. I heard that before too. I don't know.
He's never confirmed either way.
Yeah, that's Jane Westerling.
Or at least maybe
shit.
not her, but maybe someone.
It'll be
he said that she's going to be in it.
Or a blackfish.
No, it'll be what's his nuts, Bonifer Hasty, or whoever's leading the escort back to Casterly Rock, to lead Edmure and Jocelyn Frey, and also Jane Westerling.
Because the prologues are usually a one-off character, right? Usually
he's got to die
by the end of the prologue.
Yeah, the prologue.
And isn't Sir Bonifer in Harrenhal?
Yeah, I think I got that wrong. It's one of the other ones. Those Western.
It's another guy that I also can't remember.
Shocking lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that, you know how he said he wasn't going to introduce like new POV characters? Do you think he's still sticking to that?
He says a lot of things.
I think as far as like, in at least what I think is like as far as named POV chapters, hopefully he's done adding. But I think we might get, one or two one-offs. But I'm not sure. And then, of course, the prologue and if there is an epilogue chapter, those are going to be one-offs.
Yeah. What is there a term for like
we got Kevin and... Sorry.
What was that? Is there a term for what?
Like a middle log? Like it's randomly in the middle of the book.
If this is the intermission chapter, you can walk away if you want to and go get
go
something
to the bathroom, get a drink, get a snack.
But then when you come back, just finish it.
Oh, fuck me. It was Sir Forley Prester.
Oh, how could I forget? Oh my god.
That son of a bitch.
Shame.
Shame. Where's the bell? Somebody get the bell.
He's leading the escort of Edmure, Jane, and Rosalind Frey.
Oh, right, of course. That guy.
Seriously.
I'm very disappointed in you, Michael. You know everything.
Shit,
you should have known that.
I was actually annoyed that I didn't know that one.
I know.
We could tell.
No, you're wrong. It's character XYZ.
We should send that to Greg as a trivia question.
Right. Michael, add that into your character blot. That probably takes up an entire wall in your house. It's got moving parts. It's interactive.
Michael, to redeem yourself, what's his sigil?
Oh.
You're just adding insult to injury, you know? Is it the purple one?
The right
Is it
sigil,
something purple?
like king. Michael
I mean, it's easy because I'm looking at it.
I got nothing.
Is it something on a checkered field?
No.
Okay, well that was all I had.
It's a red bull on a white field.
Oh, their main export is caffeine.
Yeah, they're
Bull's junk like the
Spanish.
Maybe Martin was like riding and he had like a Red Bull in his hand. He's like, I need a new sigil name. Oh.
No, here's the thing:
it's a ball gag because he's got leather daddy issues.
Ooh. So I'm thinking that this character is somehow gonna give Jane Westerling wings.
Oh, nice.
If Martin was drinking Red Bull, we'd have wings of insight.
Jane Westerling is the third head of the dragon, confirmed.
For sure. I mean, I'm sorry that you just came to that conclusion, but I've been there for a long time.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Wingspan now? We had Wingspan chat.
Right. Yeah. Wingspan. Oh, God. Speaking of, I think that we are probably pretty close to the end here. Anybody have anything else to add on this Arianne chapter? Or, if not, anybody have anything to add just in general about these three chapters together?
I guess the only thing to mention here is I think it was you, Michael, who talked about this a while ago, about who was the betrayer. And I think you made a great point that it can't be anyone else except Spotted Sylvia, because she's in the Stormlands, right?
Yeah, she's in the geographical destination of Arianne.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be... And she got sent away and kind of did the least bad, I suppose, out of all of the conspirators.
I don't know if being married to someone who's like old enough to be a grandfather is the least bad of of their punishments. To be fair,
in Westeros, that's like a Thursday.
Yeah, probably. But personally, I think I would prefer to go away for 2 years and come back. But that's just me.
Well, but I mean, I agree with you. But
the point was a good one, that she's the only one that stayed in Westeros, and so plot-wise, Arianne has more chance to meet up with her again and to confront her with the betrayal.
So
yeah,
you don't think it was
I don't understand the argument. Isn't it either Darkstar or what's his name, Ari Zoghart?
Well, neither of those makes sense because, why would, if they knew that it was going to be a betrayal, why would Aerys Oakheart sacrifice himself? And why would Darkstar do something stupid like wait for the betrayal and then attack Myrcella and then it fails because it was like a spur of the moment thing?
Is it not maybe this is just because I had parents who always told me we're not angry, we're just disappointed, but
Good preface.
Go on.
Let me just bear that wound to the world. But but it was I always thought it was just Arianne's own dumbassery, and Doran wanted her to stew on it and be more careful because she would think that it was someone else, but really he just fucking figured it out because she's an idiot.
Doran's make good decisions.
I thought it was Aerys because he's got so much conflict over what he's doing. I just thought he snitched and was hoping it would all work out, and then realized in the moment, it's going tits up anyway.
Possibly, but I mean, Aerys was a dick anyway. He'd fuck up snitching. He wouldn't, he'd snitch on him. And
I mean, he was. I don't think he was. I mean, he had a lot to lose by snitching, so I don't think that it makes sense for it to be him.
A glorious death is all he could hope for. That's why he killed himself.
I guess what I'm confused about is that isn't Balon Swan going off after Darkstar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Arya Hotah and Obara Sand are also going after him.
Yeah, they're all together.
Yeah, we've got the very large camera going with Obara.
And they're going because he's the one who maimed Myrcella.
Right.
Yeah.
It's implied that Aeryo and Balon might be fighting in the future, so I have a feeling Darkstar's gonna snitch on what actually happened, and then Aeryo is gonna be forced to kill Balon Swan.
Ooh.
He'll say that Aeryo killed.
He'll say
Swan
Darkstar
brother.
killed Swan. And there's no blood on my axe, by the way.
What?
It's just rust.
Why would he lie about killing a king? He already killed one.
Well, again, that's a secret. Because again, they say Darkstar killed him.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why he's going to, yeah.
Fuck.
They got Myrcella to say that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Have her busted ass face.
Quote unquote Myrcella. Dun, dun, dun.
It's really Miss Sunday.
God damn it.
Confirmed.
Okay, that's actually done.
Yeah, she's a faceless man. And also
literally at this point.
She's got teleporting powers.
Sweet. I love it.
She is the perfume seneschal.
I love it.
Just point out how the Lannisters are losing pieces of their faces a lot now. Tyrion doesn't have a nose, Myrcella doesn't have an ear.
They're just losing pieces of their body in general, because then Jaime lost a hand.
That's right.
Cersei loses her hair.
Cersei loses her
Cersei
hair.
lost his life.
And the soles
Mr.
on her
Potato
feet.
Head.
Yeah, Cersei's lost the soles of her feet, too, from that walk.
Yeah.
Tywin loses his colon. Kind of.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Kevin loses his blood.
Yeah.
Lost his life, yes.
Whatever the cousin that's at River Run lost his clean-shaven face. Didn't you say
and that other cousin just got lost.
Yeah. The whole him is lost.
Oh
Oh my god.
And meanwhile, Tyrex sipping a glass of Arbor Gold in fuck knows where.
Some brothel.
He's in Illyria's
Tyrion
mansion.
lost his nose.
Where's Tyrek?
He's in Illyria's mansion.
All roads lead to Illyrio.
That's where Varys smuggled him to.
Company.
Do you know what? I can usually shit out some sort of bullshit theory, but I think he's in a bowl of brown, mate. He's gone.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Bowl of brown, huh? Oh, boy.
I want to close out the episode real quick, and then we can do show talk for a minute or two. But I did want to check in. Does anybody have any forthcoming episodes you wanted to pimp out or talk about?
I think we're doing a JFK 2, but that's up to FT Ward to schedule.
Yeah. And
I've poured too much vodka into my drink, and I'm having a hard time right now.
Is anyone doing his Dark Materials?
I would love to.
Yeah, I would too.
I would love to watch it actually, and then talk about it. But I have no idea where I can watch it. Is it out yet?
Yes.
What platform is it on?
It's on HBO.
Okay.
BBC.
Yeah, well, that helps me. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay.
God damn it, Marie, be American.
Oh, come on. If I had to choose, honestly, no offense, but I would definitely be British before I would be American.
I agree, and I'm American.
Oh, that hurts my feelings.
But
I love you guys.
I know somebody, I did see on the forums that they're trying to put together a Mandalorian podcast.
I fucking love that show.
Yeah.
Is it good?
It's really good.
I fucking love it. It's like space western, but like even better than the original Star Wars.
I heard it was gonna suck, but I like her. Is it Jason Pena?
No, it's Pedro Pascal.
It's Pedro Pascal.
It's Pedro Pascal, yeah.
Oberyn
Martell.
I mean, you never see his face, but he's in it.
Yeah.
Oh, from Narcos as well.
Yeah, I imagine at the end of the season, he's going to take off his helmet.
We could hope.
Well, that's not the way.
It is not the way. I have spoken.
He takes off his helmet when he eats. He said so in an episode. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just
and he
not
did
in front of other
look out the
people.
window. Spoilers.
Varley, stop spoiling it for me, all right? These are juicy details, mate.
Yeah.
And I think,
hey, guess what? There's a baby Yoda.
Yeah, as if he doesn't know already.
I've seen memes.
But I think that because I think they're putting together an episode, but I'm thinking they're planning on doing like a weekday, which I wouldn't be able to do. But I'm just really looking forward to listening to that.
I want to be a part of one of those, whoever's organizing it.
Right, or at least I just want to listen to everybody else's opinions because everybody at work doesn't watch anything nerdy, and I have nobody to talk to about anything.
Yeah,
so,
it happens.
Yeah.
I just want to, say that Sarah's most recent episode was awesome. It was
thanks.
way more smart than...
Wait, me, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't know.
Hey, oh, wait, yes, I haven't listened to that. I was just wondering what it was. Yes, I need to listen because that sounded very interesting.
Yeah, it was great, and it just proves like how smart we are, some of us.
Yeah, some of us.
Yeah, I have several more that we could do, and I'd love to do another one if people are interested in doing it. I wanted to give people a chance to hear that one though, and kind of like see a sense of like how it goes. But maybe after the holidays, we could kick that up again.
That'd be nice.
Perfect.
And also, Bina has already posted a CTA for the next reread, so...
Of course she has.
Well, while we were talking, yeah.
Beautiful. For those of you who are following along at home, the next episode of the reread will be hosted by Bina, and the chapters will be the Barristan 1 chapter, Tyrion 11, and Victarion 1/2 from Dance. I don't know what that means. Maybe they're just combining them.
It's just because it was not his name in the previous one. I don't think the first Victarion chapter is not called Victarion.
Yeah, so technically the chapter title is
it's
Victarion
like the
1, but
pirate
it's actually
douchebag or something.
Yeah, something like that, Matt.
Perfect. And then they will also do a post-credit discussion on Arianne 2. So Noah is going to jump up on this episode as well, so he can give his knowledge.
Yay, more Noah!
I was looking into my glass candle, mate. I was just a bit too ahead of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to work on your timing.
You've been talking to my girlfriend.
And then if you'd like to, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, iTunes, WordPress, all by searching for Vassals of Kingsgrave. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening, James.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, James. Bye, everybody.
Dracarys.
So yeah, just, I mean, pretty much what did you guys want to talk about the show? I obviously think that the dragon pit scene, or not the dragon pit, the fighting pit scene, we should probably talk about. They did it so differently in the show than they did.
You mean where Jorah throws a spear seemingly at Daenerys, but really hits the Sons of the Harpy?
Right. Well, and I mean, they just laid it on so thick that the Sons of the Harpy were attacking, and it,
everyone gets murdered.
It's like you could have, all you had to do was introduce Strong Belwas a couple seasons ago, and then do the cricket thing, and we would have known that.
Also, who's security there? I mean, everyone has a fucking mask.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't his star die? Doesn't he get stabbed or something?
Yeah, he gets stabbed by the Sons of the Harpy, which kills our theories about him.
Well, and it was done in such a way that it looks like he's still alive.
Right. Well, and the
showrunners
Tyrion
just fucking gets burned by dragonfire. All the good guys almost get burned by dragonfire. She pieces out, and that's it.
Yeah.
I looked at if you go back to the episode, there is one unsullied person that does get killed.
I'm not going back to the episode ever again.
It wasn't that bad. Come on,
Tyrion,
mate. It's tainted.
Missandei, which I thought was going to turn into a Tyrion Missandei kind of bone fest, but
mate, it's tainted. Book Melisandre had it right. If fucking half an onion's bad, you don't eat it. Fucking
and throw it out.
Yeah. If seasons 1 to 3 are great, that's not worth introducing your kids or friends or family to put them through, the rest.
Please don't show Game of Thrones to your kids.
Right.
I mean, maybe when they're Missandei's age, so I can turn them into little evil assassins.
Yeah.
I may have read chapters of Game of Thrones to my daughter while she was in the womb.
Aww.
Hero.
Jaime chapter too.
Yeah, well, my 6-year-old knows that the Starks are all part wildling, but it's because Game of Thrones lore is bedtime stories, just heavily edited, and mostly Fire and Blood and the World Book. Also, please don't take my children away.
I'm not going to.
Dracarys.
I guess with the dragon pit scene, I was a little disappointed that Daenerys doesn't go through the arc that she has with Drogon on the show. She kind of just does the thing that you do when you meet a strange dog and you want it to like you. You put your hand in his face.
Right.
And that's all she does. But in the books, it's just more of I have to tame this beast.
Yeah, there are no more arcs in the last few seasons.
Right.
They're just it's just action
and
reaction, and that's it.
Right. Well, and the show's way of explaining anything is just going, it's magic. And so she put her hand on him, and suddenly they have a dragon bond, and it's magic, and she's gonna jump on him and fly away, and it's so great. And
it's just so unearned.
I think the bumper for this this podcast should be "It's magic."
It's magic. I think it was even more obvious in the thing when Jon meets Jon Snow, but they did such a shot for shot rip off of How to Train Your Dragon, and I'm really, you guys, is that the most research that you did? Was literally watching a movie called How to Train Your Dragon?
Right, exactly.
Are you serious?
Dracarys.
And then as far as TV show discussion goes, I think the Tyrion chapter, I mean, it has nothing really to do with the show. I mean, he was bought and sold on an episode and then got his freedom. So I mean, there was
somehow
dick jokes.
Right, exactly. And then he's free, and that was all good to go. And then as far as Dany, I mean, besides the fighting pit, nothing else really relates back to the show that much. I mean, she got married again to Hizdar so quickly, and then he got stabbed in the heart or whatever. So
she got naked again as well. that's what the show does. They give people good plot lines and then kill them and get them naked again.
Well, boobies.
Yeah, because we needed to see Arya as well, didn't we?
We didn't see her
my
breasts.
Oh, we
Yeah.
We got strong side boob though.
I had forgotten about that. That was, yeah.
It can't be undone.
Yeah, that was.
Burn it down, start again. That's what I say.
And they will. In like 20 years, we're going to get the inevitable reboot. We just have to stay unstressed so we don't die early so we can watch it.
The reboot is just going to start at
How
season
do we
4,
stay
though.
unstressed?
Dracarys.
Oh dear. Well, I'm glad we all agree that the show was terrible.
Yeah. Yes, Kevin?
Oh, you heard that? I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know. I've never rewatched it, so it doesn't really. I've always just viewed it as a separate thing. So I just like if they messed up, whatever. There'll be a reboot.
Whoa.
We'll get wins and we'll get Dream. I'm more concerned with him not finishing the series than two people messing up the adaptation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you definitely on that. It's like at this point I can totally separate the show from the book, and I mean I've kind of forgotten a lot about the show until we bring it up and I start to rehash and get angry.
And then like it's kind of always been terrible. It's always had its flaws. Like I kind of mentally checked out when Jaime killed his cousin that one scene.
Yeah.
Like, was that season 2?
That was season 2.
And I was like, oh, well, this is...
D&D's hands are all over that scene.
Those were the glory days, mate.
Right? That was when the show was still good.
Yeah, you are right, Kevin. There are, like, indicative scenes that were a harbinger of things to come.
But then they also threw in some scenes that were, like, really good that I feel like build character and things like that. Like the Cersei Roberts scene. Like, that was a good scene.
Wasn't that when George was still, like...
Oh, maybe.
That was a really good scene, but wasn't he still, like, advising at that point?
Also, it was also when they needed to fill out time.
Barry scene was really good, too.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Just them... Just being nasty and shady to each other.
For every scene like that, there's a Raz scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Dracarys.
I don't know, man. Stannis, Dawn, Euron Greyjoy, they messed up big things about the books that are great.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've been shitting on Arianne, but like, she's not even in the show, like
right, yeah, including
and Fagon and everyone else. Like,
you know who Arianne's better than? Show Elaria.
That's
true. So she got released after the entire thing got burned down.
Yeah, she's fine now. She's chilling out.
Shouldn't she be on that council? Like, not the unnamed Prince of Dawn. What's going on there?
I love how they call him
they
Random
think
Martell.
What a
Random
surprise.
Martell.
Yeah. And like suddenly Robert Aaron is like a grown kid that can like walk for himself and be alive and not dying and like all sickly.
Just say
and
it.
Shit. He's alive. Number one.
And actually a competent.
And he's really attractive. He did the old what's his name? Neville Longbottom.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre. Like, it's just... Why?
Right, and I mean,
it's like he didn't have any health issues. He just was weak. He needed a man's hand or something. I don't know.
He just had to kick that syphilitic breast milk habit.
Oh.
I don't know. I mean, and as a Daenerys fan, you would think I'd be so mad that right before the end she died. But I'm like, I kind of go back and watch The Bells, and like, that's an awesome scene.
Right,
it's stupid as hell, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like if that's George's overall plan is to have Daenerys come and be this villain or whatever it is and be the final villain, like at least like make it better and not just like, oh, she kind of like flipped on a dime and started killing everybody.
How could she possibly be the final villain though? Like I will bet you
$1 million she's not, and she's not going to have like a turn on a dime moment. The wildfire in King's Landing is going to be an accident.
Yes.
I think
$10 billion.
But I think we kind of touched on it on the podcast today that she really wants everything her way.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever she thinks is right, and everything she thinks is wrong, and that will be what happens at the end. Like she'll see one way of ruling, and people will see another way, and that's where the conflict will happen.
Is her way burning down all of King's Landing just because?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, because John.
I don't see that happening because she's more rational than that. Like,
yeah.
Going after everything but the Red Keep.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what switch flipped in the show that she's like, all right, well, I saw like one guy die and I saw Missandei get beheaded, so I'm going to burn this fucker to the ground. Like, I don't think that will happen.
Right. They needed to kill her off, so they needed to give a reason for Jon Snow to stab her.
Dracarys.
That felt like such a Martin thing. That scene with her and Jon, and she says, "All I have is fear." That felt so much more like something that, because I know they say book themes are for 8th grade book reports or whatever D&D said.
My whole career is based on themes. I'm with you, man.
We know that the love is you choose fear over love is something we hear from Cersei and Tywin, and that just seems like a Martin thing. So I do think she's going to destroy King's Landing. When you said what she thinks is right is right and what she thinks is wrong, she said to Jon, they don't get to choose. And again, that just felt like Martin's, just straight out of Martin's mouth. So, and I like her as a character, but I can just see her doing all this stuff. But it's going to be better handled by Martin in the books.
Certainly. I mean, it's like, hopefully it'll actually make sense, what's going on.
Hopefully. Yeah, and everywhere the dragons dance, the people died. I don't know. that just seems like, hey, the kid's right. When she comes over here, everyone's going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think Fagon is going to beat her to King's Landing and already be ensconced there with everyone's support, and that's going to be what makes King's Landing the battleground.
So she also might think that Aegon is a fake.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she had the whole vision with the Mummer's dragon and everything. But do you think then Fagon is going to be the one to take out Cersei or to handle Cersei? Is that what your idea is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nah, it's going to be Loras.
I don't know about Cersei. For sure, Mace. The Tyrell army is going to go down to Storm's End, and they could be defeated. And then, whatever happens after that.
Well, Rowan's allegedly going to turn his cloak. And, Mace will get killed.
But then Jaime's going to strangle Cersei, but I see Aegon's forces being like, they're going to topple the Lannister regime.
Yeah.
Then how's Jaime going to get away from Lady Stoneheart? He won't get away.
That is a genuine mystery, but I just know he will.
It's gonna be.
He'll have to, and Brienne will have to kill Lady Stoneheart or something like that. But I don't see that happening either.
Dracarys.
Oh, Fire and Blood is... Well, no, it's not called Fire and Blood.
The House of the Dragon is in production. I mean, that... I'm hoping... I have actually pretty high hopes for that, just because they don't have as much material to base off of, so they can fuck with it a little bit, and D&D isn't doing it, so I kind of...
Their grubby hands are off it.
Because that works so well in the later seasons.
Should I make another...
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, like, in the later seasons, at least there was like a story that was built up. Like they have an ending. They know what the ending of the Dance of Dragons is going to be.
Right.
And they don't like with us in the books, like listening or trying to get into any of like the love story or interpersonal relationships between the characters. Like that wasn't really built up that much in Fire and Blood or the World Book. So I feel like they can add in a lot of things without really pissing people off. So that's why I have high hopes for it. And, I mean, you got to imagine they're going to start off with a high CGI budget. The fact that they're starting off with fucking dragons. So,
Yeah, I would like to see Daemon put his sword through Aemon One Eye. That would be pretty badass.
Dracarys.
But now, the one thing that's about, I understand people hate the show, what it became, but one thing that I'm kind of just worried about is that, say, House of the Dragon is good for season 1. All shows have bad episodes, but everyone's gonna be waiting for that one bad episode. It's gonna be like, oh my god, it's D&D all over again. This sucks. Let's hate. Some people already they think D&D are making this show, so they hate it already.
Do any
of you
reputation
to shake off?
Do any of you guys feel that passionately about the Dance of the Dragons, though?
No.
Like, I like it, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Fire and Blood, and I enjoyed the spin-offs in the book sense, but I'm not going to be that pissed.
It doesn't have the pizzazz of the original story, obviously.
Yeah, you're not as attached, like if Jaehaerys is slightly shorter than he was, or he's older, do you know what I mean? Just little things like that aren't going to get me like they did in the show.
Right, but I think that's kind of one of like the good things about it is we're going to have less things to criticize and hopefully more things to enjoy about the show than we did in the later seasons of GOT. So that's why I don't know, I am looking forward to it, but I definitely see what you're saying, Kevin, that, you know, there's going to be the skeptics or the people out there that are just going to see one wrong thing and you know, go off on it, and then unfortunately with Twitter, shit catches fire, and, you know, suddenly it's the worst show that's ever existed.
Yeah. Like, with The Mandalorian, some people were just like, oh no, is this going to be the Last Jedi all over again? Oh my god. Like, I know hate is fun, it's popular, it's great to gather around and, like, shit on things. We're kind of doing that right now. But at least give it a chance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and
don't shit on anything you haven't seen yet.
Right.
Or read.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think that's why I am so optimistic about it, is I'm just not that worried about them fucking it up.
Yeah, a public service announcement. Make sure you can shit on something that you can see.
That's a great...
Yes. VOK PSA, only shit where you can see.
Those are our house words.
Shit on things you can see.
Oh my god.
I love it.
Fantastic.
Oh, well, on that note.
Right, I was going to say, anybody else have anything else on the show as it pertains to these chapters? Are we good?
I think we're good. I think my dinner's on the table.
Fantastic. It's been a long cast, but that's all right. Hopefully we'll have I'll have a lot of content to work with while I'm editing.
It's been good. We're running out of episodes, so it's a nice classic.
Right.
And also, talking to nerds is just great.
Yes.
Like, oh mate,
talking
with
to
you
people
on that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and then, it's just great to like let it all out and you know.
Right.
Is that's the semi-canon house words, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking.
Let it all out.
Only shit where you can look, but then let it all out.
But then shit anyway.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Well, it'd be rude to stop.
All right. Bye, you guys.
On that note, it's been fantastic.
See you, Sarah.
You guys.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
Thank you, James.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye-bye.